highly skilled personnel, as well as support training of health workers at both pre-service and in-service levels. The Honorable Member, Faith Wairimu Gitau, will also be moving a motion on the waiver of charges and establishment of an employment database. That this House urges the government, through the Ministry of Public Service, Youth and Gender Affairs, to waive the payment of these fees by job seekers or job-seeking youth in the country, and further urges the ministry to immediately fast-track implementation of the National Employment Authority Act, which requires the establishment and maintenance of integrated and up-to-date database of all persons seeking employment. We are waiting for quorum to be achieved so that the House can get down to business. And anytime now, we do expect the quorum to be achieved. But as it currently stands, the quorum bell is being rung until the House is able to quorate. The number required according to the standing orders is 50 members seated in the chambers at the commencement of business. Yesterday, the departmental committees which were engaged in the vetting processes of various nominees for positions in government did table their reports, and those particular reports will be debated this morning. There are a number of them, and the members will be seeking to dispense the business regarding those reports, and they recommend the approval of some nominees to various positions in government. Quorum has been achieved.
We now have the required quorum, therefore business will start.
Order number 1, administration of oath. Order number 2, communication from the chair. Order number 3, messages. Order number 4, petitions. Order number 5, papers.
Leader of Majority Party.
Honorable Speaker, I beg to lay the following papers on the table of the House today, Wednesday, 28th February 2018, morning sitting. The Intergovernmental, in bracket, Alternative Dispute Resolution Regulations 2018, pursuant to Section 38 of the Intergovernmental Relations Act 2012. 2, the report of the Auditor General on financial statements in respect of the following institutions for the financial year that ended 30th June 2017 and the certificate therein. Number 1 is Industrial Development Bank Capital Limited and Unclaimed Financial Assets Authority.
Very well. Next order.
Order number 6, notices of motion. Order number 7, statements. Order number 8, procedural motion. Exemption of business from the provisions of Standing Order 43.
Again, Leader of Majority Party.
Honorable Speaker, I beg to move that this House orders the business appearing under order number 11, 12, 13, 14, and 15 be exempted from the provisions of order number 40, subsection 3, being a Wednesday morning, a day allocated for business, not sponsored by the majority party or minority party, or business sponsored by a committee through their chair. Mr. Speaker, as members are aware, Wednesday mornings are meant for debate for private members' bills and motions. However, the House Business Committee, in its sitting last night, felt that there's a need for this House to consider the reports on the vetting of the various nominees to the offices of principal secretaries, ambassadors, and high commissioners, so that we dispose of all these matters. So it's just a procedural, and I am sure members will agree with the House Business Committee resolution last night. I beg to move and ask the majority whip, because I'm not seeing the minority leader and the minority whip who were with me last night in the House Business. Maybe they are still stuck in traffic, so I'll ask the majority whip to second.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I want to thank the mover of this motion, Majority Leader, for moving it. I think he has given very adequate explanation as why we should have this procedural motion. Mr. Speaker, this is in order so that we can change our own programs as and when need arises, like now. It has come, and because we have the timelines, I think it's important that members understand and support this procedural motion so that we can be within the requirements of law. Mr. Speaker, I wish to second.
Very well. And therefore, I will propose a question, which is that these House orders that the business appearing under orders number 11, 12, 13, 14, and 15 be exempted from the provisions of Standing Order 4030, 43 being a Wednesday morning, a day allocated for business not sponsored by the majority or minority party or business sponsored by a committee. I put the question, which is that the House orders that the business appearing under orders number 11, 12, 13, 14, and 15 be exempted from provisions of Standing Order 43, being a Wednesday morning, a day allocated for business not sponsored by the majority or minority party or business sponsored by a committee. Will as many as of that opinion say aye? Aye. Many as of a contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it. Just a minute. Honorable members, I wish to rearrange the order of business by placing before you a message which would have been done earlier, and then we will come back to order number 9. Honorable members, pursuant to the Standing Order 41, I wish to report to the House that I have received a message from Senate regarding its decision on approval of members for appointment to the Parliamentary Service Commission. Honorable members, the message reads in part, and I quote, "In accordance to provisions of Article 127(2) of the Constitution, by a resolution passed on Tuesday, February 27, 2018, the Senate also approved the appointment of the following members to the Parliamentary Service Commission. A, under subsection C, Roman 1, the Honorable Naomi Shaban, EGH MP, the Honorable Adan Kainan, CBS MP, Senator Beth Mugo, EGH MP, Senator Aaron Cheruiyot, MP. B, under subsection C, Roman 2, the Honorable Ben Momanyi, MP, the Honorable Aisha Jumwa, MP, Senator George Haniri, MGH MP. Honorable members, you will recall that this House, by a resolution passed on Thursday, February 22nd, 2018, the National Assembly approved the 7 members for appointment to the Parliamentary Service Commission. Honorable members, this therefore concludes the bicameral approval of the appointment process and paves way for the commissioners to take oath of office as required under Article 74 of the Constitution before they commence their duties. I thank you. Next order.
Order number 9, procedural motion. Limitation of debate on motions for approval of various state and public appointments.
Leader of Majority Party.
Honorable Speaker, I beg to move that pursuant to the provisions of Standing Order 97, subsection 4, and notwithstanding the House resolution of February 14th, 2018, limiting speech in a debate on any motion, this House further orders that the debate on the special motions for approval of appointment of nominees to various state and public offices appearing in today's order paper be limited as follows. A maximum of 1 hour with not more than 15 minutes for the mover in moving and 5 minutes in replying, and not more than 5 minutes for any other member speaking, including the leader of majority party, the leader of minority party, and further priority in speaking shall be accorded to the leader of majority party and the leader of minority party in that order. Mr. Speaker, the House is required to consider and approve 10 nominees for the office of the principal secretaries, 8 nominees for the office of ambassador and high commissioners by the end of today. And considering the time constraint, Mr. Speaker, the House Business Committee last night agreed to limit the time for debate on the said reports not to exceed 1 hour. That any particular report, and this is very, very crucial, Mr. Speaker, if the House approves, that the chair has 15 minutes to move, he has 5 minutes to reply. So 20 minutes will go with that. The rest of us will have 40 minutes, with each one of us speaking for 5 minutes, including, unfortunately, even to the leader of majority. And this is, Mr. Speaker, so that we expedite this process today morning and afternoon. Mr. Speaker, the aim of this proposal is to catalyze the process of considering of the committee reports. And this is because most committee were vetting one person. So it's only the Departmental Committee of Defense and Foreign Relations that vetted 8 nominees for the office of the ambassador and high commissioner, and 1 nominee for the position of the principal secretary. So it's also, this motion is just procedural, it's in-house, it makes us to comply with the statutory deadline of today. I beg to move and ask majority. I saw Honorable Bandi coming in, and he has left. Yeah, but let me ask the only sergeant and a senior member of the House to second.
I'm not so sure if this is the only surgeon in this house.
Yes,
We have plenty of doctors here. Unless you are suggesting that most of the others are gynecologists. Proceed. And gynecologists also are surgeons, you know. Well, proceed, Honorable Ukose.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you, Majority Leader. You know all of us are doctors, but there are various specializations. A gynecologist is also a surgeon, but a surgeon on the gynae side. And I'm a general surgeon. And that's why I've said there are surgeons on the gynae side and obstetrics. Mr. Speaker, I want to support this procedural motion by which was moved by the majority leader, in that, Mr. Speaker, since we can, from the order paper, we can see that we have many public officers, state officers who are going to be approved. By limiting the time, we'll be able to cover that. Mr. Speaker, limiting to 1 hour, and you have 15 minutes for the mover, 5 minutes for the reply. You have also 5 minutes for the other speakers, including the majority leader, Mr. Speaker, and the minority. I think this will assist us to expedite the approval for these ones, for these state officers, so that they can begin their work with immediate effect, Mr. Speaker. So I second this motion.
Very well. And I propose a question which is that pursuant to the provisions of Standing Order 97-4 and notwithstanding the House resolution of February 14th, 2018, limiting speech in the debate on any motion, this House further orders that the debate on the special motions for approval for appointment of nominees to various state and public offices appearing in today's order paper be limited as follows. A maximum of 1 hour, with not more than 15 minutes for the mover in moving and 5 minutes in replying, and not more than 5 minutes for any other member speaking, including the leader of majority party and leader of minority party, and further, that priority in speaking shall be accorded to the leader of the majority party and the leader of minority party in that order. I put the question, which is that pursuant to the provisions of Standing Order 97-4, and notwithstanding the House resolutions of February 14, 2018, limiting speech in debate on any motion, this House further orders that the debate on special motions for approval for appointment of nominees to various state and public offices appearing in today's order paper be limited as follows. A maximum of 1 hour, with not more than 15 minutes for the mover moving and 5 minutes in replying, and not more than 5 minutes for any other member speaking, including the leader of majority party and leader of the minority party, and further that priority in speaking shall be accorded to the leader of the majority party and the leader of minority party in that order. Will as many as of that opinion say aye? Aye. Many as of a contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it.
Order number 10, the Kenya Roads Bill, National Assembly Bill number 47 of 2017, second reading.
I think the position on this one was that we put the question? Okay. Order members. I put the question, which is that the Roads Bill, with the Kenya Roads Bill, National Assembly Bill number 47 of 2017, be now read a second time. Will as many as of that opinion say aye? Aye. Many as of a contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it. Next order.
A bill for an act of parliament to provide for the classification, management, construction, and maintenance of public roads, to establish the Kenya National Highways Authority, Kenya National Urban Roads Authority, and Kenya National Secondary Roads Authority, and to provide for their functions and powers and for connected purposes.
Very well. Next order.
Order number 11, special motion, approval for appointment of Principal Secretary of State, Department for Agricultural Research.
That will be the Chair, Agriculture. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
You have 15 minutes, but the less the better.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'll try to be brief. Mr. Speaker, from the onset, I'd like to move a special motion approval for appointment of Principal Secretary for State Department for Agriculture Research. That this House adopts the report for the Departmental Committee on Agriculture and Livestock on the vetting of nominee for appointing as Principal Secretary, laid on the table of the House on Tuesday, February 27, 2018, and pursuant to the provisions of Article 15(3)(b), Article 155(3)(b) of the Constitution, approves the appointment of Professor Hamadi Idi Boga as the Principal Secretary, State Department of Agriculture Research. Mr. Speaker, research is a driving force behind innovation in science and technology. Therefore, research studies being conducted at our research centers has the potential to yield new knowledge that could influence the day-to-day lives of millions of Kenyans. Mr. Speaker, Professor Hamadi Boga was born on the 3rd of December 1967.
Order, Honorable Chepkut. Honorable Chepkut, you
Yeah,
do what is supposed to be done in this house. You see,
Thank you.
Honorable
Thank you,
Chepkut,
Mr. Speaker.
you will go all the way and perform what is supposed to be performed. Proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Professor Hamadi Boga is a professor of microbiology at the Jomo Kenyatta University of Agriculture and Technology, JKUAT, and currently the acting vice chair of Taita Taveta University since 7th October 2016. Professor Boga has a BSc in Botany and Zoology, first class honors, and Masters in Botany, Microbiology from Kenyatta University in Kenya. Professor Boga also has PhD in Microbial Ecology and Microbiology from University of Constance in Germany, and a postdoctoral research study at the Max Planck Institute for Terrestrial Microbiology in Marburg, Germany. He is also a Harvard Fellow and was 2010-2015 the Harvard Ambassador Science for Kenya. Mr. Speaker, sir, Professor Boga has previously held various administrative positions in JKUAT, including chairman of botany at the department between 2002 and 2004, director of Institute Biotechnology Research 2005, dean of faculty of science 2007, and principal of JKUAT Taita Taveta campus in Voi 2007 to 2012. From 2012 to 2016, Mr. Speaker, he was a principal of Taita Taveta University, initially a constituent college of JKUAT, which he grew up to a full university status. Mr. Speaker, Mr. Boga has an extensive international and local network, especially in scientific engagement and collaborations. He was a board member of the World Federation of Culture Collections. He was the secretary of the African-German Network of Excellence in Science. He was the secretary between 2002 to 2006, and later chairman 2008 to 2010. Mr. Speaker, Mr. Boga has over 66 scientific publications in international journals. He has supervised over 14 PhD and 31 master's students. He is an active researcher with active international collaborations. He has a very strong track record for networking in terms of fundraising for research. That is the reason why the committee was very thrilled to be able to give him a nod to take up this challenge. Mr. Speaker, other notable achievements of Professor Boga include the founding of Taita Taveta Satellite Campus from a humble beginning to a full university status. This is credited to him personally. He's got recognition from the Ministry of Mining and Ministry of Education for setting up Technical University as the Mining Institute of Kenya. Mr. Boga also guided TTU to be picked by the DAD and the German Federal 2017-2018. This is at least what the Agricultural Committee noted. I therefore want to challenge the Budget Committee Chair as well as the Cabinet Secretary for National Treasury, that the agricultural docket requires adequate funding to achieve the government agenda of ensuring food security for Kenyans. I also call upon the Cabinet Secretary for Devolution and Planning to engage the committee as the nation grapples with the ongoing drought, as only through consultation and planning will ensure Kenyans' sacred lives are not lost by vicious circle of drought. Honorable Speaker, drought, crop failures, livestock deaths and diseases, forest cover depletion, climate change, all require some instant interventions. All we need to do is plan and face these challenges as a committee and as a nation. They are not insurmountable, Honorable Speaker, And as a committee, we are up to the task, and we will call upon your office and that of the clerk as we work towards securing Kenyans from hunger, death, and starvation. Mr. Speaker, finally, I cannot conclude without commending the committee members who have shown confidence in my chairmanship and for their diligence to ensure we achieve our objective as well as the aspiration of our constituents. I wish to thank the members for their commitment and dedication to the Department Committee on Agriculture and promise to provide the leadership that they demand from me. Finally, I wish to thank the Office of the Clerk for encouragement and secretariats which have been up to the task. Mr. Speaker, finally, I wish to challenge the nominee, Professor Boga, to move with speed upon approval to undertake and prepare to submit to conclusive research on issues affecting agriculture such as Galana Kulalu livestock matters, agricultural technology matters, among others, and propose solutions to this challenge. Mr. Speaker, I call upon the House to approve the nomination of Professor Boga as per the motion spelled out in today's order paper, and call upon Vice Chair Honorable Wangwe to second. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Wangwe, member for Navakolo.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I rise to second the motion as moved by the chair. And Honorable Speaker, maybe I just add a few insights of maybe what the chairman might have not spoken about. Honorable Speaker, the objective of this State Department, which is very new, is very clear. The Big Four agenda of the Jubilee government, Honorable Speaker, speaks very loud. And we need to do research. We do not want to do farming or agriculture without proper research, Honorable Speaker. And that is why we say that it's important the House approves the State Department of Research in order for this scholar, Professor Boga, to coordinate the ministry in terms of research. The ministry has various state agencies such as CALRO and KEFIS, among others. Those state agencies, Honorable Speaker, must be well coordinated by a scholar so that we have the proper output in terms of the product we are going to achieve. You can understand, Honorable Speaker, the world is doing research in terms of GMO. The world is doing a lot of research in terms of the seeds, certified seeds, the chemicals to apply, and therefore we need somebody at the apex of the ministry to really undertake that kind of career, Honorable Speaker. The key strength I found out, Honorable Speaker, together with the committee, the competencies that Professor has include the respect for the rule of law. During when he appeared before the committee, Honorable Speaker, Professor really confirmed that he's going to respect the rule of law. He is going to respect summons and invites from this House, Honorable Speaker. That is a challenge among the very many state officers who might want to resist appearing in this, on behalf of this House. So, Honorable Speaker, that strength, I want to say Professor must really echo it and adhere to it, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, there is also the clause on Chapter 6, which he complied with, and we were happy as a committee, and we all felt it's very important the way he presented to us. He complied with the tax compliance, and he has all the merits of Chapter 6. Honorable Speaker, finally, Professor is not a very wealthy man. He is a man who is living within the means of his salary, and he really declared that he is 50 million worth of himself, and we would want to see that Professor, when he gets onto this position, he lives actually within what he is able to contain in terms of his earning. With those very many remarks, Honorable Speaker, I beg to second.
Order, member. I propose a question, which is that this House adopts the report of the Departmental Committee of Agriculture and Livestock on vetting of nominee for appointment as Principal Secretary, laid on the table of the House on Tuesday, February 27, 2018, and pursuant to provisions of Article 155(3)(b) of the Constitution, approve the appointment of Professor Hamadi Idi Boga as the Principal Secretary for State Department for Agricultural Research. I'll give the first shot to Honorable Mwakuona Mwashako, member for Wundanyi, and for members, it's 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I stand to support the motion of approving Professor Hamadi Mboga as the Principal Secretary in the Ministry of Agriculture. Mr. Speaker, I just want to mention a few things about the professor.
Na itabidi mwenzetu huyu tumeteua kama bunge kwa heshima kubwa sana, tuone kuwa Kenya itakuwa ikiuza chakula nje badala ya kuleta chakula katika Kenya yetu. Na hii wakifanya hivyo, Bwana Speaker, atakuwa sasa anafanya kazi ile inastahili kusimamia masomo yale yote alisoma katika vyuo vikuu mbalimbali kulingana na matokeo ya kamati ya bunge iliyoteuliwa na sisi. Ombi langu vile vile ni sisi wanambunge, hasa pande zote, upinzani na sisi, tumuunge mkono na tumushikilie wakati yako masinani akifanya utafiti, akikuja eneo lolote lile, huyo ni mwana Kenya, tumusaidie ndio aweze kuleta utafiti ulio na mwelekeo mwema, na mimi najua Kenya itakomaa kikilimo na kimaendeleo. Asante sana, nimeunga.
Member for Ainapkoi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I wish to take this opportunity to thank the professor. But I've been wondering in Kenya, all these intellectuals, they don't translate their acquired knowledge, expertise, and authority into practice. I'm urging the Principal Secretary for Agriculture to translate the intellectual discourse into practice. You know very well that Rift Valley, especially the North Rift, you are planting a lot of maize, you are planting a lot of wheat, cash crops, and all the value additions. And of course, milk. KCC is paying us 24 shillings per liter. And last year, they were paying 43 shillings per liter. I want Ministry of Agriculture and Cabinet Secretary Treasury to put a lot of money into agriculture so that the inputs, especially the fertilizer, are subsidized. The seeds are subsidized so that whatever we harvest commensurate our production. You can see the cost of production is very high, and at the same time, is it logical, Mr. Speaker, sir, to get the money for importing maize from abroad, and we have land that we can subsidize the seeds, the fertilizer, and of course, the fuel, so that the cost of production comes down. So these peers, Principal Secretary, is a renowned, a proven, and a distinct scholar. Having said that, I want him, and I humbly urge him to translate what he has acquired into practice. At the same time, Article 155 and especially Article 129, 130, and 131 empowers the president to nominate them. And it is the duty of Parliament to approve. We don't have problems. We shall comply. We are going to approve. But I want cabinet secretaries and principal secretaries to respect members of Parliament, because we are the cardinal pillars by the Constitution of this country. We approve all the state officers, so therefore, whatever we say, they must comply. Mr. Speaker, sir, oh yes, yeah, they must comply, and they must respect members of Parliament, because we are very important people. When we go to their offices, they keep us waiting, but classical examples is Charles Keter. He is a good man, because he has been a member of Parliament. He's one of the great people. He is accessible, he is valuable. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. God bless you.
Okay, honorable members, before I give the next member, let me recognize in the speaker's gallery the presence of Mwangeka Girls High School from Mundanyi, Taita Taveta, Twin Bird Academy, again from Mundanyi, Taita Taveta, Kidule Primary School from again Mundanyi, Taita Taveta. Well, I do not know whether there is a coincidence between the the nominee we are discussing and the presence of pupils and students from that particular county. I do not know, but if it is a coincidence, maybe a better coincidence. And of course, you know, their member of Parliament was the first one to contribute in support of this particular one. So I proceed to give that grandfather member of this House, Honorable Jimmy Nuru Angwenyi, member for Kitutu Chache, who just dealt a blow on his issues of petition.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me a chance to contribute this important appointment. Mr. Speaker, Kenya's economy is based on agriculture. But we have not demonstrated in the last few years that we really value that base of our economy. The amount of money we devote towards agriculture is very small compared to the contribution made by agriculture to this economy. Mr. Speaker, for example, the planting season started yesterday when it started raining in most parts of the country. When it started raining in the Rift Valley, in the Nyanza part, and some parts of Central. And yet, I was inquiring this morning, subsidized seeds have not been given to the farmers. Subsidized fertilizer has also been given to farmers. And yet we expect to have food security in this country. Mr. Speaker, I know this professor will bring some change into that ministry. I'm sure, because I've been a lecturer myself, when you want to implement what you have been thinking or reading about, you can make a change. And I'm sure he's going to bring a change to that ministry. Mr. Speaker, when he gets there, I hope we will deal with the cartels. Cartels that have been involved in the industry of the production of milk, production of maize, production of wheat, production of agriculture, of coffee, production of tea. Mr. Speaker, these days, coffee in the world market, raw coffee, goes for at least 120 shillings per kilo. But in Kenya, farmers are paid 15, 20, or 25 shillings a kilo. Who takes the balance of 100 shillings per kilo? I'm sure I will ask this PS, like my colleague said, the PSs that we are appointing or we are approving for appointment should be able to listen to us. So because we have got the issues that affect our constituents who are Kenyans. We are the people who have got those issues. So we can express them to them so we can take some steps. Mr. Speaker, again I ask this House, when we get the budget, to see to it that we have got adequate funding for agriculture sector, if we want this economy to grow. Mr. Speaker, there are certain countries who have, depending on their agricultural production, have moved from third world to first world. Brazil is one of them. Brazil is one of them. Malaysia is one of them. And yet, the type of production that they give, the kind of production they give is not comparable to what Kenya can produce. Only that Kenya is not investing adequately in agriculture so that we can produce more and we can move from third world to first world. Mr. Speaker, when these appointments are made and they are sworn in, do they swear in PSs? They don't. But when they take over, maybe you should call them here.
And despite the fact that we are part of African Union and we are supposed, in line with Maputo Declaration, to commit 10% of our national budget to agriculture, we have not done that. Apart from supporting the motion, I would like to actually support the chairman, what the chairman of Agriculture Committee has said, that we need to work they need to work very closely with Treasury, and as parliamentarians, we need also to call upon Treasury to enhance the budget ceiling for Department of Agriculture. Mr. Speaker, research plays a very key role in agricultural production. All our agricultural research institutions have been poorly funded. I would like to thank His Excellency for creating a State Department of Research and Agriculture. Creation of this particular department is probably a good starting point to enhance our investment in agricultural research as a country. Now, being an agricultural country and being also very much dependent in terms of our national income on agriculture, it is important also to appreciate that climate change is affecting our ability to feed our population. As we speak, Mr. Speaker, large part of our SAL today is food insecure. It is depending on relief food. These relief food are also not being provided in substantial quantities, but the part of our country which is arable, if proper agricultural research is done and appropriate plant seeds and varieties and also animal breeds are produced, we are not only able to feed ourselves, but probably we can turn our country into a net exporter of food rather than importing food as a country. And therefore, as I support appointment of professor who is actually a refined researcher, an accomplished academic, and I think looking at the report on the committee which actually assessed him for suitability for proposed appointment, we have no doubt that this particular new department, which actually ought to have been created many years ago, is going to help us as a country to achieve one of our key pillars, which His Excellency has actually identified as things that we need to focus on, particularly as the ruling coalition for the next 4 years, which is food security. We are going to be food secure if actually we are going to allocate a lot of resources to this particular department. And therefore, I support the appointment of Professor, and I thank His Excellency for creating this very important department, which actually is going to enable us to allocate resources to research. Thank you very much.
Can we therefore have Honorable Leshomo Maison?
Yeah, asante sana Mheshimiwa Spika. mimi pia nikiunga mkono hii mambo ya agriculture. Mheshimiwa Spika, tunaelewa vizuri sana agriculture ndio inabeba wananchi wa Kenya. Na ikiwa hatutaweka pesa ya kutosha, itakuwa ngumu wa Kenya kuendelea kufuna mafuno yao. Mheshimiwa Spika. Mheshimiwa Spika, niko kwa hiyo kamati na kila wakati tunajaribu kuweka pesa katika kwa agriculture. Na mara kwa mara unakuta pesa pia inapatikiwa inaenda tena pahali zingine. Kwa hivyo Mheshimiwa Spika, yangu ni kuunga mkono na kusema ni muhimu tuweke agriculture pesa mingi. Na nikisema agriculture, Mheshimiwa Spika, hiyo department iko na mambo mingi, iko pia livestock ndani. Mheshimiwa Spika, livestock, mambo ya wafugaji, tunaumia sana kama wafugaji. Mheshimiwa Spika, pesa ikiwekwa kwa mambo ya livestock kwa wafugaji, sisi ndio tunaumia. Ukame ikija inamaliza wanyama. Njaa ikija inamaliza. Mambo ya maji inategemewa kwa mambo ya wanyama. Kwa hivyo Mheshimiwa Spika, ningesema tu mambo pia ya livestock, ya wanyama. Ningeomba kusema pahali zingine tunaumia kabisa kama wafugaji. Kama sasa kila mtu anaona katika Kenya bile mahali zinakufa, bile hakuna maji, bile hakuna nyasi. Na kuna story moja na hatuwezi kukubali. Kuna wakati tunatenga pesa mingi sana hata ya kusema inaenda kwa nyasi, inaenda kwa kusaidia ile chakula ya ng'ombe, unakuta hatuelewi inaenda pande gani. Kwa hivyo tunataka iwekwe pesa mingi ili ipate kusaidika. Mheshimiwa Spika. Mheshimiwa Spika, tukiunga mkono pia mambo ya mahindi, mambo ya kahawa, iwa pia ni mvua ndio tunategemea inyeshe. Lakini ikiwa mambo pia ikiwekewa pia tuwe na maji mingi, hatutakuwa tukilia pia mvua haijanyesha kama kuna irrigation katika mamea yote. Kwa hivyo Mheshimiwa Spika, naunga mkono na tunataka kuhakikisha pesa iwekwe katika hiyo idara, hiyo department, kwa sababu hiyo department imebeba mambo mingi na inataka pesa ndio pia ipate kusonga. Asante Mheshimiwa Spika, alikuwa anataka kuchangia.
Honorable Brighton Leonard, who is that?
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, sir. I would like to second, or rather,
it is not,
or rather support,
okay, proceed.
Support the appointment of Professor Ahmadi Boga as the PS of State Department of Agriculture and Research, realizing that that agriculture is among the 4 pillars of this particular economy. Therefore, we require research as a fundamental or as a foundation to production of food and agriculture. And we realize also that Kenya depends majorly on, Kenya's economy depends majorly on agriculture. And therefore, look at tea, coffee, macadamia, among other products that are being exported. We're looking at research on issues to do with variation of prices, especially of tea from east and tea from west. Those are among the things that we expect Professor Ahmadi to look into. Look at research to bridge the gap on why we are still importing sugar, we are still importing maize, while we have adequate land, while we have adequate labor to handle such like issues. We need to shift and have a paradigm shift and move from traditional farming to modern farming. A shift from rain-fed economy to irrigation. And that is why we require Professor Mboga in that particular department. Look at the advent of GMOs. there is need to do proper research and build on the positives of GMOs, and also do research on the health hazards that are posed by GMOs. Research, therefore, will lead to improved crop and also livestock production, among marketing, among other issues. Therefore, I support. Thank you.
Very well. Now, and I see all members are basically really supporting. So let's have the mover to reply.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. Mr. Speaker, from the onset, I want to thank members for having made such a valuable contribution to this motion. The sentiment have been noted. As the committee chair for agriculture, I will convey some of those very valuable points that have been noted by members in this House. And I really want to thank them for having contributed to this motion. Just one or two things I want to clarify. The question on the intellectuals that often are not translated into intellectual prowess, that very often than not we have brilliant minds employed in positions, but they end up in underperforming. That is basically true. But what is different for Professor Boga is that he is a career researcher, and therefore will put his technical and conceptual skills into the work that he is being set out to do. However, a lot also has been said about the budget, because basically the resources must follow functions, and this is what we are asking the executive to do. And I want to repeat that the excitement out there about the Big Four agenda in terms of agriculture is actually not captured in the budget for 2017-2018, sadly so. And 2017-2018 budget is 10 billion short of what we had last year. And the committee also noted during its, the committee noted that certain research institutions have researchers who are waiting only for donors. And so we really need the department to be resourced adequately. And Mr. Speaker, sir, with those very many remarks, I beg to move. Thank you.
And I proceed to put the question, which is that the report of the Departmental Committee on Agriculture and Livestock on vetting of the nominee for appointment as Principal Secretary, laid on the table of the House on Tuesday, 27th February 2018, and pursuant to provisions of Article 155(3)(b) of the Constitution, approves the appointment of Professor Hamadi Idi Boga as Principal Secretary, State Department for Agricultural Research. Will as many as of that opinion say aye? Aye. Many as of our contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it. Next order.
Order number 12, special motion. Approval for appointment of principal secretaries for state departments for devolution and planning.
That is the chair, is it Chair Finance? Yes, proceed, Honorable Limo. And I hope we will not be very wordy this morning.
All right, thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to move a special motion, Mr. Speaker, for the approval of the principal secretaries of planning. and that is Dr.
The
Muya.
best way for you to do, Honorable Limo, is to go through that, the motion, and then start with the reply. Of course, I know you know that very well.
Mr. Speaker, I move that this House adopts the report of the Departmental Committee on Finance and National Planning on the vetting of nominees for appointment as principal secretaries laid on the table of the House on Tuesday, February 27, 2018, and pursuant to the provisions of Article 155(3)(b) of the Constitution, approves the appointment of Dr. Julius Muya and Mr. Nelson Marwa as principal secretaries, State Department for Planning and State Department for Devolution, respectively. Mr. Speaker, these nominees, Mr. Speaker, appeared before our committee, the Committee of Finance and National Planning on Wednesday, 21st February 2018, and the committee examined their suitability on the criteria set out by the Public Appointments Approval Act of 2011. Mr. Speaker, we actually noted that the clerk of this House had already sent to the public an invitation for the public to submit a memorandum, and by the time we were vetting these two nominees, there was no memorandum which was received by the National Assembly, Mr. Speaker. The committee, during the vetting exercise, engaged the two nominees, Mr. Speaker, and I wish to start in summary with Dr. Muya, Mr. Speaker. Dr. Muya is Julius Muya is a nominee for the Principal Secretary for Planning, Mr. Speaker, and we noted that this nominee, Mr. Speaker, has an impressive CV, Mr. Speaker. The nominee has a PhD in finance, and he has actually, he also has a master's in business administration and Bachelor of Commerce, and he has a wealth of experience in both public sector and private sector, Mr. Speaker. The latest being is a Director General Vision 2030 Delivery Board. Mr. Speaker, he was involved in the formulation of Vision 2030. Mr. Speaker, the nominee also actually exhibited a very, very clear knowledge of topical issues on economic planning, Mr. Speaker, which is a major, the major role he is actually nominated to do, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I do not want to dwell into so many details, but in summary, Mr. Speaker, all the requirements for the appointment to this position, especially touching on Chapter 6, was provided to the committee, and in our view, Mr. Speaker, the issues which are very important for this particular State Department, Mr. Speaker, is the issues which are coming in August 2019, revolving around census, Mr. Speaker. Census is very important because population is a main factor when it comes to sharing of resources in this country. And this nominee, Mr. Speaker, exhibited a lot of knowledge in terms of managing the processes which are going to deliver the much needed accurate data during the census. Mr. Speaker, he also exhibited a lot of knowledge in actually playing a key role in ensuring that the planning process, both at the national level and the county level, will actually be brought together. Mr. Speaker, having gone through the whole vetting process, Mr. Speaker, it is the view of our committee that this candidate is suitable for this position. Mr. Speaker, I want to go to the second nominee, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the second nominee is not a stranger to this house, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the second nominee is Mr. Nelson Sospita Marwa. And this is a nomination for the Principal Secretary Devolution. Mr. Speaker, this nominee is none other than the famous Marwa, who has been in news for many, many reasons, Mr. Speaker, in the Coast Province, Mr. Speaker. First, as the county commissioner, Mr. Speaker, and lately as a regional coordinator, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, Mr. Marwa holds a Master's of Public Administration from South Gujarat University in India, Mr. Speaker, and he started his career back in 1992 as a district officer, that is a DO, popularly known as DOs at that time. And he has actually risen through the ranks to the latest position where he's holding as a regional coordinator for Coast. Mr. Speaker, during the vetting process, this nominee exhibited a lot of knowledge and experience in the public administration, Mr. Speaker, and actually he understands the issues around the counties and therefore the devolution. In devolution, Mr. Speaker, the main issues in devolution currently is the issues of one, the implementation of the devolution process, including full transfer of functions, Mr. Speaker, and also coordination of those functions which are appearing to be interrelated. They are actually shared between the national government and the county governments. Mr. Speaker, he actually exhibited a lot of knowledge on these particular issues, and in our view, Mr. Speaker, this candidate is going to deliver. Mr. Speaker, I want to conclude by saying, Mr. Speaker, the committee, having considered the suitability, capacity, and integrity of the nominees, and pursuant to Article 155 of the Constitution and Section 8 of the Public Appointments and Parliamentary Approval Act number 33 of 2011, Mr. Speaker, recommends that the National Assembly approves the nomination and subsequent appointment of one, Dr. Julius Monzi Muya, to the position of the Principal Secretary, State Department for Planning, the National Treasury and Planning, and Mr. Speaker, two, between the national government and the county government. So I don't expect him to be very abrasive the way he has been in Coast. You know, sometimes dealing with the murky waters of the Coast, you have to be tough to ensure that the Al-Shabaab do not assess this country. But now, he needs to be very, 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 very professional, and he has to be diplomatic in dealing with the governors and the Council of Governors, because currently we want the delivery of service. Mr. Speaker, having said that, I don't expect them to ignore this House. This is the representatives of the people. Mr. Speaker, the committee wishes to thank your office, Mr. Speaker, and the office of the clerk for the logistical support accorded to it during the vetting exercise. Further, the committee wishes to thank all the stakeholders for their participation, Mr. Speaker, in the approval hearings. The committee also is thankful to the media for the coverage of the proceedings during the vetting exercise, Mr. Speaker, thus enhancing accountability and transparency of the exercise. Mr. Speaker, on behalf of the Departmental Committee on Finance and National Planning, I would like to urge this House to vote and approve the appointment of Dr. Julius Monzi Muya and Mr. Nelson Marwa Sospita to the position of the Principal Secretary, Planning, and the Principal Secretary, Devolution, respectively, Mr. Speaker. And I hereby give the opportunity to ask you to give the opportunity to the Vice Chair of our committee to second this report. Mr. Speaker, thank you.
Member for Raisambu, the Vice Chair.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I rise to second this special motion. Having considered the suitability, capacity, and integrity of both the nominees and pursuant to Article 155(3) of the Constitution and Section 8(2) of the Schedule of the Public Appointments Parliamentary Approval Act number 33 of 2011, I wish to second this special motion that this House approves the nomination and subsequent appointment of Dr. Julius Monzi Muia to the position of Principal Secretary, State Department of Planning, the National Treasury. And 2, the appointment of Nelson Marwa Sospita, Principal Secretary, State Department for Devolution, Ministry of Devolution, Arid and Semi-Arid Areas. Mr. Speaker, I want to say that in our vetting and in our interviews, no member of the public or official or groups brought any memoranda mentioning the two adversaries, which shows that they are very special people. And they are examples of humble, down-to-earth servants who are patriotic and who have had distinguished performance and delivery of services in the sphere of public service. Both of these gentlemen are modest and of Christian background, and they value public service more than personal aggrandizement. And Social Council, which advises the President, the government on development. Mr. Speaker, in conclusion, I also wish to commend before this House the appointment of Nelson Marwa, the astute, no-nonsense officer, who has now the experience of dealing with the governors from the coast. So he is best suited to serve as the link between the government in the devolution docket to deal with the governors, etc. So with those few words, Mr. Speaker, I wish to second this special motion. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable members, I propose the question that this House adopts the report of the Departmental Committee on Finance and National Planning on the vetting of nominees for appointment as Principal Secretaries, laid on the table of the House on Tuesday, February 27, 2018, and pursuant to the provisions of Article 155(3)(b) of the Constitution, approves the appointment of Dr. Julius Muia and Mr. Nelson Marwa as Principal Secretaries, State Department for Planning and State Department for Devolution, respectively. I see interest from the Honorable Waweru Kiare, member for Dagoretti. He's not in the House. He stepped out. Very well. I will give this opportunity to the Honorable Wachira Kabinga, the member for Mwea.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I arise to support the appointment of the two officers in the Ministry of Devolution and Planning, Mr. Speaker. I do not know the two gentlemen, but listening from the respective chair, Mr. Chairman, I have no doubt that these two gentlemen will handle this ministry in the right way. Mr. Chairman, this is a very important ministry, a ministry that we all look forward to its execution of its mandate, Mr. Chairman, especially now that we have drought and hunger in many parts of the country. Mr. Speaker, I have an advice to these two gentlemen. We have a history where whenever we have drought and hunger, we look to the traditional areas that are usually affected by hunger and drought in the past. But I want to advise that our environment is changing, our country is changing, our population is growing, And we have many parts of the country that are affected by some of these disasters, Mr. Speaker. I do have in mind, Mr. Speaker, my own constituency in Mwea, where our rivers are now dried up. An area like a place called Marumo, adversely affected by the fact that liver that they depend on is completely dry, Mr. Speaker. And I hope that these two gentlemen can widen their eyes and look upon some of these areas that may not be traditionally in the list of those that are affected by drought, but are now affected because of our environmental changes, Mr. Speaker. I also want to ask the two gentlemen to also look at some of our rivers who dry up when it's drought time and also become a disaster when it rains. This particular river that I'm referring to, Mr. Speaker, River Diva, becomes a disaster when it rains. It overfloods, and as many of the members in this house may know, Mwea is characterized by villages that are clustered along or around the rice farming. And when this river bursts, Mr. Speaker, we have disasters that needs to be looked at. And therefore, I would want to ask these gentlemen, especially Mr. Nelson Marwa, whom we have heard and we all respect, to look at some of these rivers and find a way of ensuring that when it rains, it doesn't affect the villagers. And when it's a drought time, this river, the management also needs to be looked upon so that the upper streams, the downstreams parts may also have some water. We know, and we do know, that when we are in such a period, Mr. Speaker, there is a tendency of people living in the upstreams to ensure that they have water. They draw water from the main rivers, leaving people at the downstream, Mr. Speaker, with not a drop of water. And this is what is happening in some parts of my constituency, running down from Shagine, Gategi, Gatwiri, all the way to Marumo and Gitoboto, people who are now suffering. And I hope that the chair is hearing me and will send the same message to the two gentlemen as they take up their offices, so that even as we wait for the rains, Mr. Speaker, these people can be serviced, even if it's through clean water lorries that could provide water to these people. Equally, when we come to distribution of relief food, I am hoping that this time, Mwea constituency and my neighboring Bere constituency too will be included in the constituencies that receive relief food, because we are in that category, Mr. Speaker, sir. And for that reason, I want to support the appointment of Dr. Julius Mwea and also Mr. Nelson Marwa to this very important Ministry of Devolution and Planning to serve our people and to serve them equally, knowing that our country is changing, the environment is changing, a number of our people are now affected by drought and hunger. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Very well. We shall have the Honorable Pukose, member for Interbase.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I stand to support the approval for the appointment of the principal secretaries to the State Departments of Planning, Dr. Julius Mwea and Marwa for devolution. Mr. Speaker, on the onset, having listened to the committee presentation in terms of the CFI for Dr. Julius Mwea with a PhD in finance, Mr. Speaker, what it means is that at that level, he is able to coordinate in terms of planning all the officers in that ministry and be able to deliver on service. Mr. Speaker, it's a shame that we're talking of hunger, drought, and all that within our country. Yet in some parts of this country, people have plenty. We talk of the North Rift, Mr. Speaker. As we speak today, many of the farmers have a lot of maize in their stores. And the biggest problem is the market. Because when the Cereals and Produce Board was ordered to be able to purchase this maize, there have been a lot of challenges in terms of delivering of the maize to the cereals, and also the remittance, the payments for those farmers who have delivered to the cereals has been challenging. And also the millers are not buying the maize, Mr. Speaker. So, and the middlemen who are doing that are also buying at a throwaway price. So before we even think of asking for maybe appealing to import maize and other things, we should think of the stock that we have, Mr. Speaker. And that is where our Minister of Planning comes in, to have a better plan and how we can be able to mop up, make sure that our farmers, as we speak today, the weatherman is saying that beginning 1st and 2nd, we're going to have heavy rains within this country. If we are going to have heavy rains within this country, it means the farmers must be preparing their land for planting. It means that even the fertilizer must be available. And how do you plan for planting when you already still have maize in the store? You have plenty which is already there, and yet the other parts of the country are crying that we have famine, we have drought, and all these issues. So, Mr. Speaker, I'm hoping that we approve immediately Dr. Muya and his team, and we hope that Marwa will also move with the speed. He's been showing a lot of zeal in dealing with security issues, dealing with Governor Joho in the coast and other places. We want to thank the President also for appointing him, especially coming from a minority group, the Kuria community, Mr. Speaker. I think this is a very great blessing to the people of Kuria, and it shows that they are also inclusive. And we from the Sabot community, Mr. Speaker, are also waiting to see how soon we'll also get an approval for an appointment for a PS or another position, so that we can also feel we are part and parcel of this government, Mr. Speaker. With those few remarks, Mr. Speaker, I want to support this appointment.
Very well. We shall have the Honorable Kihara Wanjiru, member for Naivasha. Members, it is my understanding that the people who are interested in speaking to this particular motion were to press the intervention slot so that we can move on. But as you do that, I would give this opportunity because of leadership to the Honorable Angwenyi. And yes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me a chance to contribute towards this important motion. These two gentlemen, Mr. Speaker, they exhibited great experience and the knowledge to the services they are going to provide in the ministries they have been appointed, they are being proposed for appointment to. Mr. Speaker, Dr. Muya has got a PhD in finance, and he has been involved in the Vision 2030. So this is the place he's going to use his knowledge and experience in coordinating the ministries in the development of strategic planning, which we need for this country to move on. Mr. Speaker, Dr. Muya is a member of various organizations that deliver services to Kenyans and worldwide. So I expect, and I believe very strongly, that if we approve, I hope we will, that he is appointed to this position, he will demonstrate to Kenyans that actually there are Kenyans in this country who can deliver what we never expected to be delivered by our citizens. Mr. Marwa is a well-known candidate. He's a no-nonsense person. I'm sure I would differ with my chairman that he should give away his nature, his character of no-nonsense. He should carry it with it to this ministry, because we don't want nonsense in devolution. We don't want the nonsense where we send money, we budget money for the counties, they misuse it. We don't want to have counties where they disregard the law and employ 100% of their employees from the same counties, thereby discriminating the rest of the Kenyans. We don't want where the governors behave as if they are kings. We have never had a king in Kenya. Now they want to create the position of a king in this country when we are a democratic society. So Marwa should go with his character of no nonsense. He has been able to deal with the very obstinate kings in this country. I'm sure one of them is a sultan. I'm sure if he carries on with that character, he will deliver in this ministry. And especially those Asal and same arid areas who need a lot of support to change their lives. For example, he can coordinate with the Ministry of Water and Irrigation so that they can provide water for irrigation in those hazard areas so they can produce for themselves. They don't have to depend for elsewhere. And the two ministries can also harness the production of food in the areas that produce food. Like my colleague has just said, North Rift produces a bulk of the food that this country produces. And yet, when they produce food, they cannot have a market to sell. And yet, when they don't produce food, we have got to import from elsewhere. We use our meager resources, foreign exchange resources, to import from Brazil, from Uganda, from elsewhere. We should support these farmers so they can ensure that this country is food secure. With those few remarks, Mr. Speaker, I want to support the appointment of the two gentlemen to their positions.
Very well. We shall have the Honorable Mzigi Mnene, member for Taita Taveta.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I also rise to support the motion on the appointment of Dr. Julius Muya and Mr. Nelson Marwa as a Principal Secretary of the State Department for Planning and State Department for Devolution. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I specifically want to talk about Mr. Nelson Marwa, and I stand to support, and I want to thank the President for honoring Mr. Nelson Marwa with this appointment. Having worked with him at the coast, I know Mr. Nelson Marwa to be a very hardworking man. I know that he's a tough talker, but I am very sure that he's up to the task. I got an opportunity to be at the vetting panel, and I know that he's going to work hard and he's going to perform in this devolution ministry. He is a very good public administrator, and therefore, I know he's up to the task. I beg this House, and I ask this House to approve his nomination. Thank you.
Very well. The Honorable Shinali Masaka, member for Ikolomani.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity. I'll start by thanking the President to have nominated the two gentlemen who are civil servants, who are long-term civil servants, and we believe that will give morale to other civil servants to work hard, because we have seen Dr. Julius Marwa and Mr. Irungu of Water now serving as PSS in this government. That is just to say civil servants should work hard. Their work will promote them to the next level. Having listened to well-presented motion by the Chair, Finance, I have no doubt that we are picking people who have the requisite experience to deliver services in this ministry.